Good morning, I'm Harley Schlanger from the LaRouche Organization with your daily video update for June 23rd, 2022. What I'm going to be covering today is the potential which exists to move out from under the new dark age which is enveloping the world and into an era of peaceful development and cooperation. There's some questions that have to be asked initially to pose the problem. Do those in power in the West actually believe they can continue with their anti-human policies of war, destruction of living standards and the physical economy, and the cultural degradation they've unleashed without a reaction? Do they really believe that citizens in the West have become so blind and dumb that they will accept a rapid descent into a new dark age based on the depopulation of the planet? Deliberate depopulation. And will they continue to tolerate? Do they think people will continue to tolerate corrupt leaders who profit from policies that turn people into pessimistic nihilists, into the equivalent of beasts seeking to defend their own turf against all others? Their free ride may be coming to an end. The endless war, runaway inflation, shortages, deaths from suicide, from drug overdoses and random violence are catalyzing a global resistance movement. You can see this in the nations of the global South, the former non-aligned countries, former colonies, which are rejecting the so-called rules-based order, which is being imposed by the military force of NATO and the economic power of international financial institutions. Many of these countries are now emerging saying no to NATO's sanctions against Russia and the war against Russia. They're saying no to International Monetary Fund austerity and central banker dictatorship. And they're saying no to the Green New Deal anti-science austerity, which is designed to reduce their populations. This part of the world is now open to a change, to new institutions. They're open to the development policies of China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has been largely shaped by ideas coming from Lyndon and Helga Zepp-LaRouche. They're open to new institutions such as the BRICS, the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa alliance, which has its own development bank and is beginning to bring in new members. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the Eurasian Economic Union. These are pro-development institutions which are saying no to the world order of Wall Street and the City of London, and are open to the ideas of the best ideas from the West with their own historical tendencies and traditions included in this. Now, what about the transatlantic region, where there is an implementation of green Shaktian economic policies? And Schacht was identified a long time ago in 1971 by Lyndon LaRouche as not only the mastermind of Hitler's policies of economic looting and destruction of the population, but also the intent of Western bankers, the same ones who in the 20s and 30s funded the Nazis in Germany. What about the transatlantic leaders? Build Back Better, the European Union Global Gateway. These are based on anti-scientific green policies that will only serve to further reduce the standard of living of populations. Censorship and spread of disinformation in the name of countering disinformation. Well, I think people are beginning to get tired of that. We're seeing demonstrations and mobilizations all over the transatlantic region now. In the United Kingdom, there's a rail strike, a prelude to what could become a general strike, as inflation has now gone over 9% on an annual rate. We're seeing farmers in Holland, in France, in Germany taking to the streets in their tractors to protest the European Union's Green New Deal, which is an attempt to destroy European agriculture. We're seeing truckers in Germany and Italy and elsewhere protesting the high price of fuel, which is a direct result of these green policies and now the sanctions against Russia. Many of these European countries have minority coalition governments. France, Macron just lost the parliamentary majority that he needs. In Germany, the coalition government is weak and is beginning to have a fracture within over the question of the lack of energy that's going to destroy the German living standard by tearing down industry and rationing energy. Italy, the same thing is going on. In the United States, you have the Biden administration with Jimmy Carter-style levels of popularity in polling. And meanwhile, the Republicans are happy to pile on against Biden, but they're joining with Biden and joining with the Democrats in the war policy, and they have no alternative to the Federal Reserve's inflationary policies except austerity, which will make things worse and will continue the disintegration of the U.S. economy. So what's needed is an infusion of what are sometimes called outside-the-box ideas, which were typical of the 8 presidential campaigns run by Lyndon LaRouche beginning in 1976, where he issued such a challenge to the establishment that they made him persona non grata. They slandered him and attacked him relentlessly. So I want to call your attention today to LaRouche's publications, the Executive Intelligence Review and the Executive Intelligence Review Online Daily Alert. The intelligence which is used by me in these daily updates comes from these sources. Now, this week's EIR, for example, Executive Intelligence Review, has coverage of last weekend's historic Schiller Institute conference. And I want to give you a little bit of an idea of what's in it, because what we're initiating is a movement for a new global American revolution of sovereign nation states committed to progress based on cooperation for the benefit and promotion of the welfare of the people of all nations. This is based on cooperation and statecraft, not bullying and narratives. And to bring this about, we're going to be initiating a petition drive for a new Bretton Woods system, which we should have within the next day or two that we can post on our websites. Now, the current issue of the Executive Intelligence Review, which comes out today online, will cover the first panel of the Schiller Institute conference from last weekend. There can be no peace without the bankruptcy reorganization of the dying transatlantic system. The first panel was titled A Decoupling of the Two Systems or a New Paradigm for Humanity. And it features the keynote address by Helga Zepp-LaRouche, in which Helga presents a realistic picture of the collapse underway, the danger of nuclear war, the danger of depopulation unleashed by the destruction of physical economy, the threat of pandemic diseases, and so on. It's titled, Let's Win Mission Impossible or Find Another Planet. While she's presenting this picture, she's also offering the optimism of the classical culture that's typified by the work of the Schiller Institute on bringing about a revival of classical tradition of music, of writing, of poetry, of drama, to develop the character of the population so that people will not submit to pessimism in the face of destruction. Other presentations that will be covered were those of Dr. Andrei Kortunov of the Russian International Affairs Council, Colonel Richard Black. His presentation was titled, Ukraine has lost the war, but thermonuclear war still threatens. Dr. Wang Wen, Why China's Rise is Beneficial to the World. And also presentations by Sam Petroda on India's role, Dr. Wolfgang Bittner with a view from Europe, and Cliff Kirikoff, who's an American foreign policy specialist. Now, next week, we'll have coverage of Diane Sayre's keynote. And I just want to call your attention to what Diane is doing. She's an example of Mission Impossible. Her campaign collected more than 45,000 valid signatures to put her on the ballot to run against Chuck Schumer for senator in New York. She'll be on the ballot in November on the LaRouche Independent Party ticket. This was not supposed to happen, but because of the underlying revolt that's underway, and the spirited intervention by Diane's campaign workers, this is now an option for a national voice against the war and depression policies. So I'll have a link at the bottom of the page so you can find out about subscribing to the EIR and the Daily Alert. And I'd urge you, if you're interested in this, to send an email to me at harleysch@gmail.com, and I can, if you include your phone number, I'll get you in contact with people who can sign you up, or just sign up on your own on the online page. Now, tomorrow's Friday. I'll be taking questions, and you can send those questions to me at harleysch@gmail.com. Don't submit to the pessimism that's the result of Anglo-American psychological warfare and narrative control. We have right on our side, we have justice on our side, and we need to take the spirit from the Schiller Institute conference out to the population. So share this video, sign up for EIR, and become part of our movement. See you tomorrow.